All right, then let's just get into this. On the screen here is an example of kind of what we're going to be doing. These are very similar, as you'd notice, in comparison to the exterior wall pieces we've done. It's basically made up of two polys for the wall. Like, they're just straight up single polygon top and bottom. And if you look at the UV seams here, they are mapped to a quarter of the UV layout because we're going to keep the same system for doing the textures. We're going to atlas them to save as much resource as possible. So at the moment I have them assigned to this kind of medieval plaster wood wall. But because they're done seamless to the edges of the quarters, if you understand, they're as perfectly quartered as possible. So if I turn on preview here, you can see they run pretty seamlessly. So we're going to be doing the same. That's how we done the exterior ones, but we're going to keep that same and the rule of thumb for this as well. And then we've just got some extra little bits like in here. We're going to be kind of modeling these kind of like wall panels, you know, like I don't know what they're called. It's like wainscoting, I think, something like wainscoting. And then we've got some molding for the top, and then just some kind of dividers for this. And the purpose for them is basically so we could, if we wanted to, we could kind of change this. We could change this if we wanted. So let's say we can just, I know it's going to be very rough, but we could kind of move these around on the tiles then and kind of get a different look. So because these are interior walls, we're going to want to have the option to change the textures on the fly, you know. Like let's say for instance this here was the exterior part of the building. We'd want to change this to an exterior brick, like down here. Now you'd want to snap this properly, you know, because you will get seams. If you're trying to do this manually by hand, it's going to cause issues. So you want to try to snap it to the grid in here as well as possible. I will be covering an add-on that I use actually for that later on. I know people are iffy about the whole idea of add-ons, but I just find them to be a time saver. There is ways of doing it that doesn't cost, but I think just save yourself the sanity. It's really worth it in the end, especially if you're doing this at a large rate. You know, if you're doing a lot of these, it's best to just kind of take the easy way. You know, don't make life harder on yourself. But in essence, yeah, that's all we're going to be doing. So things that you might notice is these wall sections are a lot thinner. It's because the exterior ones, because they're exterior walls, they should be thicker anyway. But it means because they were, let's say, that thick, it means we had to offset the pivot point. It kind of became a bit annoying when it came to doing corners or any sort of turn in the wall, because it would throw the pivot point off then, and it was kind of hard to kind of predict how that was going to work. The good thing about these interior pieces is because they're even-sided, we don't need to worry about that offset. The pivot point should be directly in the center of this unit. So that means then when let's say we want to duplicate this out, I'll just copy everything here and I'll Shift D and I'll just make a copy of this. I'm going to turn on the snap for this actually, so we can get it perfect. Sorry, I messed up already. Shift D to duplicate it, and then I'll just extract that out. With the snap turned on, that was a lot handier. Now, but because this is centered, when it comes to rotating this, I'll just hold the control key here, and I want to get a precise turn on this. You can see a turned 90-degree angle here. It's spot on. And now I can just move these into place. And you see that'll line up perfectly. Now there is a little bit of a gap here, but we're going to make a gap for that. That's fine. But because the pivot point is centered on these objects, it makes doing these a lot more straightforward. which is always a blessing. I'll just try this in rendered mode if we can. Yeah, okay, so the cycles kind of does give you these anomalies, but we'll deal with that down the road. What matters is that they line up seamlessly and the textures look seamless. So even at these folds here, you know, it's hard to differentiate where the crack in that texture is. And it all comes down to having good UVs. As long as your UVs are good, everything else will be fine. So before we actually get stuck into this, I want to just kind of preface a few things. I'm using the Blender 4.3 at the moment. I was using 4.2, which I think is LTS. So I'd recommend kind of using the LTS, but I'm kind of trying to experiment with a couple new features as well. So I'm going to take a risk. I religiously back up all my save files anyway, so I'm not worried about anything crashing. I kind of have a bit of a compulsion when it comes to hitting the Control F. So I said I'll just give it a go, and I'll see what's around the corner. I'm particularly excited about some of the new UV tools that we have in the later Blender versions. So that's a nice bridge to cross when we get there. Another thing I want to just say up front as well is when I think when I've done the exterior series, I had there was like an add-on for Blender that had the screencast keys. That doesn't seem to work anymore, and I don't really have the time to go searching. So I'm kind of hoping that people who are watching this are familiar with the earlier series, and if that's the case, they probably know most of the shortcuts. They probably know them all already. Saving that as well, if anyone knows of a good add-on that can do the same thing, that can put the key inputs on the screen for people watching, if you feel free to let me know in the comments. I don't know of any, but I don't mind installing them for people who need them. I'm just not really flush with time to go searching. For the moment, I don't think it's going to be so basic anyway. I don't think shortcuts are going to be needed. This will be more of a. I'm not going to be holding hands as much in this one because everything was done in the first series. So for this, I'm just going to really be focusing on getting it done. I'm not going to be explaining every keystroke I'm hitting. Another thing a lot of people said to me as well was use the camera. Now I have the camera set up here, but I don't know if it's taking up too much screen real estate. If it is, I can turn it off. People said it's a lot more personalized if I can kind of talk to people through camera, which I do understand. But if it's getting in the way, let me know and I can switch that off. So we'll just, I'm going to hide this. I do want to keep it because it's my template of where I want to go with these interior pieces. But I'm going to go from scratch with this. So I'm just going to turn off this for now. I've cleaned up the hierarchy finally. I know I spent about 30 videos saying that I should do it. I did finally do it. I also want to actually show as well everything that we've done in the last series of videos. I put here into this asset library. So I know I mentioned this. I think I mentioned this. This isn't even the manor house. Hang on. These are all the things that we have done on the last series. Well, they would be if they turn up. Hang on 1 second. What happened there? Am I isolating? No. Okay. That's a good start, isn't it? Okay. So it appears you can't import assets from the asset browser when you're in the asset library file. It seems to be working fine now, you know. If I bring this stuff in, it seems to work. So all these were the objects that we did in the last series. I'm a little confused already. Where's the snap function on this? Can I snap? Selection to grid. Ah, okay, selection to grid. That's actually a pretty handy thing to... I'm probably going to put that on my hotkeys. Not my hotkeys, my quick keys. That reminds me actually, my quick keys. the Q key. I know I went over this at the start of the last one. Press the Q key and you get your quick favorites. Just for people who don't know, I already have, because I'm always resetting transforms on everything, I have this set. I'm so confused already. This is going to be a great series. Object. Yeah, okay. I haven't been in Blender in a long time. So I think it's clear. Apply. No, that was it. Apply. All transforms. So it'll just apply the rotation scale and position of this object. So I always have that on my Q key, but because of the convenience of the snap, let me actually turn on the grid here just so we can see how this is gonna go. Okay, that didn't work either. Fuck me. Okay, so it seems I can't show the grid in the asset browser window either. That's some mad restrictions right there. It's not important though. If I just bring in a couple of these, let's say I'll just bring in this guy, put him random here, this guy as well, put him here, and let's throw in the roof piece as well, put that here. So we have a couple objects here. Instead of having to bring these in one by one and then kind of snap it, we'll just use that function. So if I'll go into the modeling tab. At least you've a grid now. So if I then turn on, I'll put the textures onto it. And now I want to right click this, and on snap, I will selection to grid. I want to snap the selection to the grid. So it will snap to one of the grid points, and then we can use this guy, the snapping tool, to kind of drag it into place. So instead of having to do that with every time, I'm just going to select this, snap, and selection to grid, but I'm going to press right click and add the quick favorites. So now selection to grid is available. Much easier. And now I can just come in, and with snapping turned on, I can just take and snap these as such. The view's a little tricky here. Now, I know this isn't going to line up properly, but it's just to kind of show the point, I guess. You know. So that's a good function. Add that to your quick keys. It'll save you a lot of time. But yeah, the reason I went on that tangent there is I want to explain the asset browser is very convenient to have. I will be covering this. We're going to put everything into the asset browser as we make it. Maybe not as we make it actually, because I can't work in the asset browser scene. But I'll do a video coming up pretty soon actually about all the pieces that you have that you're kind of happy with. We can add them into our library, and I'll explain all that. So these are all other things that I've been doing in the past year. I've been missing. They're nothing to do with the Manor House, but they are compatible. So we could use these. We can combine them. And like I showed with the texture change, and you can actually change these textures to fit the Manor House, you know. So it's pretty adaptive. The whole thing is pretty vast. Right, anyway, that's enough rambling, so let's just clear all this crap. Delete that, and we'll go from scratch. So I have a new scene here. I'm going to work in the modeling screen here. So we're just going to start with, let me think, is everything the way it should be here? Yeah, I suppose it is. Right, okay, so Shift A and we'll create a mesh. Let's make a cube. With snap turned on, I'll just drag this up one space. And now we get to kind of decide here how thick we want these interior walls to be. So I'll just actually pull out one of the exterior walls as something to reference here. Go back to modeling, and we can see the grid here. So if the interior wall is that thick, we only need about half. Sorry, the exterior wall is that thick. We only need about half that. So what I'll do is I'll hit the scale key here, press S, and I'm just going to drag this on the Y-axis here. And I can kind of eyeball it through the wireframe there. That thickness looks okay to me. Okay, so again, because it's offset on the outside of the exterior walls, it makes it look like it's off-center. It's not. The pivot point of the object inside with the yellow outline, that's what we care about, because that's the set of assets we're going to be working on. So this could, actually that still looks a bit thick. We could probably make it a bit thinner, maybe something like that. And because that's on the center point, I'm just going to press Q and set all transforms. And now that's our bottom piece. So then I can just Shift D and bring up a top piece. So now the wall's lining up in height. It's good enough thickness. I think I'll just go with that for now. And we can decide, actually. We'll do a couple pieces and then we'll see if they need to change. I don't think they're going to need to change. I think they're probably fine. But we'll throw a texture onto this. And we can just see how it looks. So I'm just going to UV unwrap each of these pieces here. So I'm just going to select one poly, hit unwrap. This is new. Angle-based conformal. Let's try angle-based. Okay, can I bring in my UV window here? UV editor, okay, perfect. So that works. Let's have a look at this guy here, do the same, unwrap this conformal. Now we'll go angle based. So now I just need to give it a material. I'll hop onto the material tab here and let's just give it Atlas 01. No. Okay, Atlas 01 won't work because we want something that's kind of interior. I think that, yeah, okay, this is the one with the medieval. Or even the tiles. We'll work with the tiles for now. Actually, let's not work with the tiles because the problem with working with something like that is because they're all squared, it's hard to tell the rotation of the UV itself is right. What I mean by that is, if we were to come into this section here, let's bring this down, and we want to resize it so that... Here's my tools, come here. This fella. And we just resize him, if he'd let me. Oh, come on, bro. Right, okay. Do it this way then. Never easy. You know what? I'm just going to go in the full window. That's ridiculous. I'm just making it hard on myself. Let's actually lock the border of this for the moment. It'll make it easier. I'm going to just come to the UV tab here, constrain to image bounds, and now I can just drag this right up to this corner. And it won't go beyond that, which makes it easier to line this up. Now I can just grab my transform tool here and I'll just pull this like that. So let's have a look here and turn on texture preview. So we can see it's rotated and we don't want that for obvious reasons. So you can see here on the actual UV that it is kind of pointing like a V. So we know that that's the bottom. So we need to rotate this so that it's on the bottom. So I'll just select everything and with the handle up here, I might need to unconstrain here because it won't let me get those angles out. If I just grab this and rotate, I'm holding down the shift key here just to snap it in segments, and I went the wrong way, so I'm going to go full 180 again. And there we go. So we know it's seamless here. We might need to come in and eyeball it a little further, but this is the free and easy way to do it. I'm just going to do this the same. I'll give it the material here. Atlas 6, and yeah, so that's the same here. Where's that image gone? Yeah, I think I might have said in the intro to this, this the file is getting so large because of the amount of images, and they're all 4K images, so you probably will see Blender struggle quite a bit. Further into the series, I think if it becomes a must, I will just I'll have a go at maybe setting up 2 projects, one to handle materials, and then we can import the materials from the asset library, similar to the way we're doing the meshes. So maybe like if we can spread the burden over 2 projects, it might not be so bad. Alright, so that is that, but I think that looks a bit funny, so I'm just going to rotate this here so that the V's meet. I don't know, it doesn't look that much better, but at least we can test that it's seamless. So with that, you know, is there an easier way to do this? I think there is. So let's just let's combine these. Control and J. No, sorry, before I do that, I need to remove this bottom piece. So I'm just selecting it, X, and delete faces. Because we're going to join the... No, we're not going to join them. What am I doing? I'm so lost. Bear with me a second, hang on. I suppose you don't need them. It's going to be hidden geometry anyway. It's just no point in having them, so let's just get them out. Remove all that. So now with this, what I can do, I'm just going to take these faces away. I'll join them now. Control J to join. I'll select these 2, X, and delete faces. Now I can select these 2 and press Shift D, duplicate them. Snap is turned on here. So if I come up to the snap and change this from increment snap to vertex, and I'll just select, press 1 to choose vertex mode, I'm going to select the corner piece. So because that highlighted white, it means it's the active vertex. So if we go into the settings here and we select this is different too. Okay, include active. Maybe it's automatic. I just want to select or snap that active vert to this. So let's just try. Okay, it's automatic now. That's great. But one thing we have to be considerate of is we copy these, and this is outward facing, so this now will be inverted. You can check if your face is inverted by coming up here into this drop down menu here, overlays, and just turn on face orientation. So you can see the red, you know the normals are flipped on it, so you can just come in, press 3 for polygon, select those, and go to mesh, normals, and flip. So there we go. So that's our straight wall segment done. Now let's just try snap a few together and see how it looks. I can come out of face orientation now. So I'll go back into modeling here. And let's just grab this and Control D. I'll pop this back to increment. And we are pretty seamless. It does need a touch of tidying up. So let's just deal with that now. X, delete. So I'll grab this. I'll come back into UV editing. I want to find in here. Actually, I'm just going to do it to them all at once. Okay, so it looks like there's the problem. There's a slight overlap. So what I can do with this is I can come in here to vertex select of the UVs, and we're just going to select everything on this side, and I'll right click straighten on, I think maybe a auto align with that. Does that do the job? It does. Okay, so we can, that's perfect. So now let's select the bottom ones, auto align, and here we'll just do it all around and on this side. Okay, so now I can just kind of move that. Oh, I will turn back on constraint to image bounds, so it won't let me go beyond that edge. So we know that that's absolutely perfect there, and we'll do the same on the top. Okay, so that is as perfect as that's going to be. So now it's just down to this side. So we can zoom right in I'm just scrolling up on the mouse wheel here. We can zoom right in, grab that, press G, and just pull that back so that it's on. You can really zoom in to the point where you can see the pixels there, so that's pretty handy. And we'll just zoom and snap that there, and we can see the bottom now is off, so we'll just do the same with that. We'll grab this, press G, and I'll just pull that up. So now that should get rid of any seams that we have here. So let's just go back to modeling. Select that. Press Control D and pull out a copy. And now if we zoom straight in on it, there's no visible seam, which is perfect. And for these faces here, I think what I might do is just, I don't need this, it's a duplicate. I'll remove that. I'll select this. Okay, so double click to select the loop doesn't work anymore. That's good to know. Maybe hold Alt. Yeah, so now to select a loop of polys, you have to hold Alt and click an edge. And it will remove the previous. So that usually means hold the Shift key, Alt, and select, yeah. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to unwrap these. So we'll unwrap. Should I unwrap all these as individual? No, I won't, because I'm going to turn them down into a pixel size thing anyway. So for this, I'm going to unwrap and go angle based. So it gives us this. Now I will just go to UVs, grab these, and just scale them down till they're like a dot. Because we don't need any visual information on these at all, because they're going to be hidden. They're the points where it's going to join, and I'm going to leave these down here in the corner. You pretty much can't see it because it's so small, but it just gives us then a solid color, which is fine. So now as this is being duplicated, snapped, you're not going to see that inside seam, but it just makes it look a little tidier. You could even find like a little black dot on a map and just have like a black border to completely conceal all that. But from that point then, that's pretty much how this is going to go forward. We're going to make the same like corner walls. We're going to find like interesting things. We're going to do windows, but it's going to follow, all of that's going to follow the same thing. The principle of this is going to be that the pivot point can be in the center now, which makes it a lot easier to do these. So to make a corner piece, you basically just have to duplicate this twice. And we can just then rotate that 90 degrees and now snap it back. So the pivot point needs to be between these. So we can actually, you know, let's just do this now. As a guide, I want to snap this pivot to the exact point where both these are meeting. But it's kind of hard to judge that by eye. So what I can do is I can give say this one here, I'll give it an edge loop. And then that places a vertex exactly where we need the pivot point to be. So with that vertex selected, what I could do is I could go to mesh and snap if it's here. Snap, okay, yep. And we want to go cursor to selected. So that'll put the cursor, the 3D cursor on that point. And then I can just grab this wall, shift this wall, Control J, and it picks on that pivot point. So now because we have a rotation on this, what we can do is just clear those transforms. So I have them saved on my Q key, reset transforms, it puts it back here, and now I can just go set origin to 3D cursor, and that puts the pivot point exactly where we need. And that's another piece done. Simple as. So we will be doing a piece to cover this cap here, maybe on the next video or two. But this is, because with the exterior wall it has that offset, we have to make 2 corner pieces. With this we only need 1. So now because it's a center pivot, no matter what way we rotate this, it's always going to land where it should. That rotation, I'm not sure if it's right, but Right. So you get the gist. So this was just for reference, so I don't need that. X, delete that. So we have a single wall piece and now we have a corner piece. You can get rid of these extras. And I'll put that together. And now while I'm starting these, I'm just going to create a collection here. So select and press M, new collection, and I'll call this interior, I can spell, walls. And create. So interior walls are coming in. I'll name them as I go. Maybe I'll have to find like a final name for them, but let's call this one straight single, and we'll have a corner. Just keep it named. I don't want to get too crazy like I did on the last one, and I lost my mind trying to find what was what. So we'll just kind of name these as we go and keep it tidy. So my plan then for these videos is I want to try to keep them maybe 20 to 25 minutes each. I know some of the last ones got to nearly 40 minutes. I just don't really have that kind of time to spend editing 40-minute videos, so I think it might be better for me and for the sake of people who are learning this if I make shorter videos but more of them rather than longer videos and less, because it's hard to retain information when you're learning something new, especially over long periods. So if that format works, I'll stick with it. If not, let me know and we can try figure something else. But I'll just keep going as this is, and yeah, we'll eventually have something cool to show for it. But we'll pick up on the next one and just see where that is. But it's good to be back. You know, I haven't done this in a while, so bear with me while I kind of navigate the new Blender settings and all. We'll get there in the end.